War in the medieval world didn't just create victory and glory. It created mountains of broken bodies. Armies marched, believing they were fighting for honor, God, king, destiny. But the truth is, every medieval battlefield was also a laboratory of pain, where desperate surgeons learned through suffering, and countless men died as test subjects. Welcome back to Dark Ages, even darker deeds. Because today, we look at the part of medieval warfare people conveniently ignore. Not the battles, but what happened after the blades stopped swinging, when the screams didn't, when the ground was wet with blood, and the medicine was almost worse than the injury. The Middle Ages saw endless war, endless campaigns, endless dead, but behind every dead knight were dozens more barely alive, left with shattered bones, torn flesh, deep punctures that could kill from the inside. War made medieval medicine evolve faster, not because they cared, but because there was always a fresh supply of living experiments. Surgeons weren't scholars, they were craftsmen, often barbers, blacksmiths, monks, whoever could hold a blade steady. University physicians treated the wealthy, the nobles, the powerful, common soldiers, disposable, replaceable, expendable meat. If you were wounded and poor, you were basically a statistic. The Byzantine Empire, unlike most of Western Europe, actually deployed organized medical corps early. Entire units dedicated to retrieving the injured during battle. Stretcher teams, field surgeons, men who existed solely to drag shattered bodies away before they bled out. That alone made Byzantium militarily terrifying, because they could return wounded soldiers to the battlefield. No one else in Europe did this reliably. England, Germany, France. At best, each lord had a leech, a surgeon, maybe a monk. Nothing standardized, no training pipeline, no sense that soldiers were even worth saving once injured. If a man couldn't fight, he was dead weight. Medical knowledge in the Middle Ages was inherited from ancient Greek and Arabic texts, especially Galen, whose writings became more sacred than scripture in medicine. But while the theories sounded intelligent, the battlefield reality didn't care about theory. Bleeding, infection, disease, internal trauma. None of the science in books could actually save men smashed apart by axes and swords. And worst of all, medieval medicine believed pain was just part of the process. Compassion was a luxury. The battlefield did not pause so doctors could help. Men fell. Men choked on their own blood. Arrows stuck inside ribs. Spears punching through muscle. Swords slicing bone like wood. During sieges, boiling oil and stones crushed men beyond recognition. Cavalry didn't just stab you. The horse could trample you afterwards. Surgeons didn't have anesthesia. They had good hands. And luck. Amputation was common, and survival was rare. Cauterization with boiling oil was treatment. That was the medical standard. By the late medieval period, gunpowder weaponry appeared. Bullets created wounds unlike anything swords or arrows ever made. Surgeons didn't understand these new injuries, so they improvised. They used everything from wine to bacon fat to human breast milk to flush these wounds. Not because they understood microbiology, but because they were desperately experimenting with anything that might work before the blood stopped flowing. This wasn't medicine based on science. This was medicine based on panic. Most injured medieval soldiers weren't transported anywhere. If they couldn't walk, they died where they fell. Eventually, early ambulance wagons appeared, slow, heavy wooden vehicles that sometimes took days to reach wounded men. By then, everyone was already dead or dying. And here's the most damning part. Medieval armies often killed their own wounded the next morning, because leaving them suffering was considered worse. That's how worthless a soldier became the moment he could no longer fight. For those who did survive, there was no veteran care, no pensions, no rehabilitation, only begging for mercy. Some returned blind from head wounds, others permanently crippled, many unable to work ever again. Medieval rulers didn't see soldiers as men, they saw them as tools. Tools that could be discarded once damaged. This is the part of history we sanitize. We show knights shining and warriors charging, but the truth is far darker. Behind every sword strike was the surgeon who would later try to stitch the consequences back together, using methods that would traumatize even modern horror filmmakers. War didn't advance medicine because of curiosity. War advanced medicine because human suffering was cheap. This was the real medieval medical school. Welcome back to Dark Ages, even darker deeds. If you want more truths history books soften, distort, or romanticize, subscribe. There's much darker still waiting.